The Western Conference playoff race is crazy. Jalen Green has been hot. Victor Wembanyama is still the generational talent and projects to be one of the best players of all time. Zion Williamson, Brandon Ingram, and the Pelicans in general are flailing as they've lost 4 on the trot. These are all the topics we are going to be going over in this episode of the Hoop Podcast. Let's begin. The Western Conference playoff race is crazy. Let's go through the standings, shall we? We have the Mavs sitting pretty at the 5 seed with a record of 47-30, beating the Warriors today 9-1. The Suns 46-31. Another great win today against the Minnesota Timberwolves, who are the 1 seed. Then we have the Pelicans, who are floundering, as I said. They lost to the Spurs today. Like, the Spurs, this team that is 19-58 into the season. The 8th seed, the Kings, without Malik Monk, they've struggled. Nearly beat the Celtics today, but the Celtics get over the line with Xavier Tillman. 9th seed, the Lakers. They're climbing and look to get into that 7-8 matchup to avoid the 2 wins to get into the game to the playoffs. And the Warriors lost to the Mavs today, but have looked great, 7 games above 500. The pure talent in the West is insane. You put the Warriors in the Eastern Conference, and they are sitting as the 8th seed, which is a double chance to try and get into the playoffs, which is incredible. The Lakers, if you put them into the Eastern Conference at 44-33, they are the 6th seed, a game back of the Knicks. Like, who were the 5th seed? And a game back of the Magic, who are the 4th seed. So we can't even compare the conferences and their talent, because let's be honest, it is a worlds away. The Warriors would beat the Magic in a series. The Lakers would beat the Cavs in a series. The Suns would beat the Bucks in a series. Maybe a hot take, but Phoenix are incredible. And the Kings would beat the Heat. The Kings, depends if Jimmy Butler goes insane, but the Kings would definitely beat the Pacers. So the talent in the West is worlds ahead. And even the Rockets, they're 1 game above 500, but they've lost 4 on the trot. But I think the Rockets would beat the Pacers. May sound crazy, but Jalen Green and Şengün are great players. Şengün, he is a person who can make, create shots, and despite losing the last 4, it should be a season that Rockets fans appreciate, because Jalen Green has come into his own right post All-Star break and has looked incredible as a shot maker and been the player that they wanted. He was a really high pick, and it was looking like he may flounder and not be that guy, but he has been incredible, averaging 25 points a game. Do you know where 25 points per game would be in the top scorers in the league? That would be the 17th top scorer in the league, and that may not sound like a lot, but that is a lot. That is crazy. It is crazy, and he's doing it on decent efficiency, 45% from the field on 19 shot attempts and 37% from 3. You gotta tip your hat off to Jalen Green. He's been incredible since Şengün has got injured. And what would have happened if Şengün was here? Maybe he doesn't take the leap, but let's assume he does. Would they have beaten some of the teams that they've lost to in the last 4? They lost to the Timberwolves by 7. They lost to the Warriors by 33. And they lost to the Mavs by 18. And the Heat by 15. But will some of those results change if Alperen Şengün plays? You assume so. He was a he nearly was an all-star this year. He was great. So moving on to the Pelicans. The Pelicans have lost their last 4 recently against the Spurs, then the Magic, then the Suns and the Celtics. And on face level you say, except for that Spurs loss, everything's okay. But every team knows that right now, you need to be pushing for playoff seeding and you need to be exceptional. You need to be playing your best this time of year. And I know that they didn't have your Zion Williamson, but it doesn't matter. You shouldn't be losing to the worst team in the Western Conference regardless. And I know Wemby is incredible, and that block at the end was incredible, and I can give Wemby his praise all day, which we'll get into after this. But you simply have to get that win, because now the Pelicans are 1 game back of the 9 seed. Only 1 game. And the problem with that, you say, oh, it's okay. They can still win games. They don't have the hardest strength of schedule. They play the Blazers, but they play the Suns, the Kings, the Warriors, and the Lakers. And let's say they win the next 4. If the Lakers win the next 4, the Lakers just have to beat the Pelicans, and the Pelicans will drop to the 9 seed. They will. Unless it is a 3-way tie with the Kings, and then the Lakers will drop to the 9 seed. But the Pelicans have major problems. I know that they've been missing Zion and Brandon Ingram, but it's not an Zion only for this game. It is likely he will return in the next one, and should be able to spur him on. But you have a look at these last 4 games. They got blasted by Phoenix. Devin Booker had 25 points in the first quarter. When they still have their defense, Brandon Ingram isn't the best defensive player. That was what they did. They caused him to get hot. Obviously, it's some of Devin Booker and his brilliance, but they weren't closing out. They weren't coming to him and blitzing him. And most teams do that, and I know when Bradley Beal, Kevin Durant is out there, it's hard to blitz. But even if you don't blitz, Herb Jones has to come to him and actually contest his shot. Get physical with him a little bit. Nope, didn't happen. He goes off for 48. The Suns win that one easily, even though they made it interesting at the end. The Magic, that was a must-win game. Must win. Magic aren't the best side. I know their record indicates otherwise, but they got to play the Pistons 4 times, the Wizards 4 times. This is the difference between being in the West and the East, and the East is much easier. And so with all of that, that's why their ranking is a bit inflated. If this team was in the West, I don't think they're a 500 team. You guys may disagree, and I love the Magic. Don't get me wrong, I love Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner and Jalen Suggs. They are incredible players, but I don't think they would be able to survive in the West. If you, let's say, switch them and the Warriors, I think the Rockets make the play-in instead of them. But yeah, the Pelicans, they had to win that game, and now they are in dire straits to maybe not even make the playoffs. But in that Spurs game today, Wemby got that last second block and ended with 17, 12, 9 and 3 blocks. Incredible game. He did get beaten a little bit by Val, who had an incredible game in his own right, putting up 26, 7 and 7. But the rebounding wasn't there, because Wembanyama collected 12 of them. It was incredible. Nearly got a triple-double. And recently, against Jokic, I know it was inefficient. You guys can all tell me that, but it doesn't matter. If he's putting up nearly a quadruple-double, then who cares? He had 8 blocks. He had 9 blocks. He had 8 assists, 15 rebounds, and 23 points. Incredible game. He did it inefficiently, but they only lost by 5 to the reigning champs. Even though it was without Jamal Murray, they should have handled them easily, but they didn't, because Wemby is brilliant. You give him, I want them to build around him quickly. Like, don't do what the Mavs did with Luka. Don't do what the Cavs did with LeBron. Build around him quickly, give him talent, and the Spurs will not regret it. He is incredible. He'll be able to win you rings and titles relatively quickly. He's better than Tim Duncan as a rookie prospect, and you have to build around him now. So will the Spurs actually do that? Well, the Spurs are terrible this year. They don't have the most assets, but they have their first round picks, and they are valuable. And I would love to see it. I know it's the most obvious rumour at this stage. Trae Young. He's been injured, but it doesn't take away the fact that he still is one of the best point guards in the league. I'm not going to put a ranking on it because I would have to go through that, but you could comfortably put at least top 15 on him, and he is incredible. Even though he's been a little bit inefficient this year and the last few years, he still brings those playmaking chops. I'd love to see Trae Young just to throw lobs up to Wemby. That would be incredible to watch. And he's been playing with a back court partner in DeJounte Murray, who isn't terrible, and I like DeJounte Murray, but it didn't suit Trae Young because DeJounte Murray actually isn't the biggest lockdown guard. He's a plus defender, don't get me wrong, he's a good defender, but he isn't the type of defender he needs. Like, he needed an OG Anunoby type level, Alex Caruso, one that can truly lock down and catch and shoot, not take away the ball, but be there just to defend, catch and shoot. And with the Spurs, I think the Spurs can build around him because the Spurs have a lot of first round picks, and they should be able to trade a few of them. Even if they don't even have to trade them, they have a lot of young pieces they could trade. Like, let's not kid ourselves here. I know everybody memes him, but Jeremy Sohan is a valuable piece. He is. Devin Vassell is a valuable piece. Keldon Johnson is a valuable piece. Regardless of what others say, Zach Collins, Trey Jones, all these players, Sidi Sissoko, I know he's the second round pick of last year, even Blake Wesley, Malachi Branham, Julie Champagne, I don't know how to say his name, but they're all valuable pieces that they are able to put into a trade and construct to win now. Because Wemby already, I think, is a top 25 player in the NBA. His two-way effort, it's one of the best in the NBA already. Like, you'd have to put him behind Giannis and Anthony Davis and players like that. But you can't disregard that defense. He's leading the blocks, the NBA in blocks already as a rookie. That is crazy. He's averaging 3.5 blocks. That's over a block of Anthony Davis, and I know he's on a bad team, and the Lakers are making a lot more shots, meaning that Wemby's able to get more blocks because they're missing more shots, meaning that there's more opportunity for the other team to get more offensive possessions. But you can't discount the defensive impact Wembanyama has, and even his offense. He hit 3 of 6 threes, I think, today, and was incredible. Even though his jump shot could be a little bit hit and miss, he's a rookie, he will develop it. If you remember young LeBron, he wasn't able to hit his jump shot consistently. He didn't really want to take jump shots. He was paint man. Went to the paint, drove in, put up buckets. Wemby has already shown the ability to hit the jump shot better than most rookies. Like, I think in terms of percentages, he has a better 3-point percentage than Scoot Henderson. And Henderson is a point guard, which is crazy. Scoot Henderson's 3-point percentage is 31.4%, whereas Victor Wembanyama has been insane and is averaging from the 3-point line 32.2%. So the number 1 and number 3 pick, but let's be honest, Scoot was coming into the draft seen as a better prospect. Obviously Brandon Miller has looked as the better prospect, but he's averaging a better 3-point percentage in a position archetype that isn't meant to shoot threes. He's a freak of nature, honestly. Victor Wembanyama is crazy. Moving on, we got to touch on this. Joel Embiid. He came back. He looked alright. I'll give him his credit. He looked alright. But then he said he had depression after the game. And said he was depressed. And I understand injuries can make people feel down. But you need him at his best. And I know he scored 29 points against the Heat. And they won by 4 in a vital must-win game. But hopefully he can just get better and be able to produce at an insane rate. Because Tyrese Maxey sure is doing it, as he scored 37, 11 and 9 in that Miami game, which is incredible. So hopefully Embiid can. I'm going to talk about some potential playoff matchups. Because a lot of people think that the Thunder and the Timberwolves, they're writing them off. And I think there's a reason to. Because honestly, the West is crazy, as I've been talking about, and I think if they do come into a series against the Lakers, the Suns, the Mavs, or the Warriors, they're probably losing. But there's 2 teams there that I think that they can get over and progress. I know they're young, but I think they're better than the Pelicans and the Kings. The Thunder this year, top 10 in both offense and defense. The Timberwolves, the best defensive squad, but the concerning part is they've been 104 points per 100 possessions in the clutch, the Timberwolves. And their defense falls to 117 point per 100 possessions in the clutch as well. So they're not good offensively and they're not good defensively. And the Timberwolves half-court offense is terrible. So with all these factors, are the Timberwolves serious contenders? Not really, and that's why everyone else is saying it, and that's why I think they can only beat the Pelicans and the Kings. The Thunder, it's a simple thing of size. They should have brought someone else in. Daniel Gafford would have been flipping incredible with Chet's ability to space the floor, bring J-Dub down to the 3, and you play Chet at the 4 and you have Gafford at the 5. That would have been a good lineup. It wouldn't have made them a super big team, but it would have helped it a little bit. Just a little bit. Because J-Dub is currently playing the 5 and he is 6'5". Like, what happens if they go up against LeBron and AD? AD has 50 pounds on Chet and LeBron has 50 pounds on J-Dub. They're just posting them up and dominating. The Lakers have 3-1 season series against the Thunder and everybody's saying they're terrible, even though they are 11 games above 500. So they needed size, and that's why they're not going to win that this year, because they weren't willing to offer more than a first round pick for Daniel Gafford, or they just didn't want him and they rather get Gordon Hayward, which I think was a very bad position because they already have a core that can contend now or to the near future. You guys can debate, is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander a good enough player in the playoffs? We haven't seen anything, so we don't know. I think he fits the archetype, but his foul, the way he tries to get fouls, it could stop him and reduce his production, because we usually see people who try and get fouls reduce in the playoffs, such as Embiid and Harden. They all come down. So maybe it could be a problem for them, which is why I heard this take recently. Jalen Williams is already so good in all the parts of his game, so could he be the number 1 option as soon as maybe next year? I don't know about it, but you got to give him his credit. He's been incredible. Definitely an all-star. Will be a top 10 player, I think. And he's incredible. He's averaging 20 points on 54% and 43% from 3. Anyone says that bad, you're delusional. So, 4 rebounds, 5 assists, a steal and a block. He's great defensively. I've noticed that. He can lock in. I know he's not usually taking the number 1 assignments, because Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is a great defender, which is something. Harden isn't a slouch at defense, he's average, but Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is incredibly talented on the defensive end. So got to tip his head off to that, but Jalen Williams can do the same stuff that Shai does. If not, I'm going to say it, in the near future, he could be a lot better than Shai. Because if what I think happens turns true, and Jalen Williams Shai isn't actually able to raise in the playoffs, Jalen Williams will. He's a bigger, well, I think he's as tall as Shai, got a little bit more weight to him, but I think he's very skilled, and Jalen Williams could be the best player in that draft. Hot take. Next topic that we're going to go into, let's talk about the Celtics. The 61-16. And you're like, man, why are you talking about the Celtics? The 61-16. They're going to go through the East. But I don't know about that. I have a little bit of a problem with the Celtics because I see them do this all the time. Their number one option is Jason Tatum. And they'll go through the playoffs and they'll barely get through. Let's go to last year, for example. Atlanta Hawks side. Trae Young, not even a top 20 player. But it goes to 7. I meant 6. It goes to 6. And Trae Young put a formidable performance up that could have got him to 7. Okay, it didn't happen. Okay, let's go to the next series. Joel Embiid is up 3-2 on the Celtics. 3-2. Like, they should have beat him in that game 6. I said this recently on my Joel Embiid video is back video, and they should have beaten them. But the Celtics just scraped through. And you may be saying, it's resilience. That's why. But then they go down 3-0 to the Miami Heat. This is an 8 seed, and I understand they beat the Bucks, and I understand they had Jimmy, but Jimmy was injured. He didn't even play well. It was Caleb Martin. Like, before that series, who is Caleb Martin? And I understand everybody says that the Miami Heat have this voodoo magic, and they're incredible, and they are incredible, and they are able to raise in the playoffs. But the Celtics shouldn't have gone down 3-0 and should have won that series. They should have been in an NBA Finals against the Denver Nuggets, and they were the best team in the Eastern Conference last year. And all they've done is add talent, but they haven't added that 1A superstar. Jason Tatum is not a top 5 player. He isn't a top 8 player. He's a top 10 player, and he doesn't bring it on a night-to-night basis. His step back jump shot, which he always goes to, his step back 3, isn't always consistent, so he's not always going to be able to generate points. And then when they give it to him, expecting him to be the number 1A star, he won't be able to finish, meaning the Celtics won't be able to actually win the championship. And maybe they will. They have so much talent. Maybe they can pull through this year. Maybe Jason Tatum won't result to just step back 3s all the time, and they'll be a free-flowing offense where Porzingis is utilised, Drew Holiday is utilised, Jaylen Brown is utilised, but I don't think it will happen. It's been the same problem, and I don't think that their head coach in Joe Mazzulla is a good head coach. He's just not good. And yeah, that's my thoughts on the Celtics. He's not good. They're not good. And yeah, they need to fix up some problems there. Even though Jaylen Brown, he did look good. And in that finals run, he was incredible. But they didn't win. Steph Curry was better because they had more playoff experience. The teams that are most likely to get out the West, Denver, they'll lose to. They will. We've seen 2 games where Boston haven't been able to finish against the Denver Nuggets because Jokic was so good. That lob to Aaron Gordon where Aaron Gordon flushes it. It's like, of course he does this. It's what he did. His decision down the clutch. He is an incredible player, and he can't be stopped unless we saw what Victor Wembanyama did, and he didn't stop him to the fullest extent. He still had a triple-double, but it did prevent him a little bit. But if he continues to hit those shots and continues to make those reads and continues to make those passes, and that team is healthy, they will be the champions. And if we have a look at other teams that could face Boston, I think the Clippers, maybe. The Suns, maybe. The Lakers, maybe. These teams, I'd tip the Clippers to beat them. I think that Kawhi is a much more reliable shooter, and even he knows when he's off, and he'll pass it off to Paul George, and maybe James Harden won't, and maybe that's why Boston are the slight favourites. But I think that the Clippers defense could be a major factor in shutting down Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. And when you shut down those two, I don't think Porzingis and Drew Holiday will be able to bring enough skill to be able to win that series for them and be the main options. The Suns, their star power, I think they're just better. I think Jason Tatum is a top, maybe is 9th. Kevin Durant is 8th. And Devin Booker's 10th in rankings. And Devin Booker, that ceiling we saw from him in the playoffs, is a top 2, top 3 player in the league, where he's shooting 70% in the playoffs, and his true shooting percentage was through the roof. So if we can see that ceiling from the Suns, and they added Bradley Beal, it's a different team, and they have role players who can actually help them in. I love the Royce O'Neal addition. He's incredible with his 3-and-D impact. And Grayson Allen, the way he shoots the ball, and Yusuf Nurkic, the way he rebounds the ball. I don't know if the Celtics win that series. I think it will be pretty 50-50. In the Lakers, Anthony Davis is incredible. His two-way impact is undeniable. People slander him. Most hated player in the NBA. But if you watch him for like a 10-game stretch, and you'll be blown away. His defense, his offense, I know it's an underrated part of his game, but he's been offensively consistent. I had a look recently, I don't know if it's changed, like last week, Anthony Davis, I think he's had 7 games that have been under 20 points. Or no, was it 10 games under 20 points? And his fellow stars like Jason Tatum, Jokic have had 7 games that were under 20 points. So if he's only having an extra 3 games, it's not as offensively inconsistent as they make it out to be. Really, if you have a look at the way the Lakers set up their offense, they go to AD in the first quarter, then they integrate their other pieces. Recently, the Wizards, he had 19 in the first quarter. Then he only had 16 for the rest of the game, because they're integrating the other pieces of his offense. So he doesn't have to be the guy they always go to, because they're such an offensively skilled team. Then you have other parts of that rotation. LeBron, Jason Tatum. I think LeBron's a better player. His jump shooting, if you saw that Brooklyn Nets game, he can get hot, and he's making all the correct decisions. Recently, after that game, he doesn't take as many threes as he did last year. He was relying on it because he was getting burnt out and tired, but he's healthy. AD's healthy. I think the Lakers would win a series against the Boston Celtics. So the Celtics have real concerns. Tell me what you guys think. I don't even know if they beat the Bucks. I think I'd take the two. Giannis is undeniably the better player than Jason Tatum, and Damian Lillard is that third best player in the series by far. So I think I'm taking them over the Boston Celtics. So do they even get through the East? Will they finally defy the odds like they haven't ever proved it? I'd love for them to prove me wrong, but they haven't. They haven't gotten over the hump. They haven't been able to prove me wrong, and they continue to prove me right. Moving on to the next topic, I'm going to talk about the Clippers, because I know I said that they could beat Boston in a final series, but they've gone 500 ever since that incredible stretch, and it's a bit concerning. The Pelicans nearly overtook them until they went on this 4-game losing streak, and before they were 45-32, but the Clippers have won 2 on the trot, 7-3 in their last 10. And I know they're starting to shut down Kawhi, but I feel that you just need to play the last 4 games, play your guys, and just make sure that this team has enough talent because I have 2 games against the Suns coming up. Just prove it against one of the good teams, and then I'll feel more confident. Because this season, they haven't been the best against good teams. I know they beat the Nuggets, but without Jamal Murray. But they lost to the Kings easily. Easily. They got slapped. They got slapped to a Sixers team without Joel Embiid. Then they got slapped by the Indiana Pacers. Slapped. Then they got slapped by the Hawks. Got beaten by the Pelicans. Got beat by the Bucks without Giannis. It's just all these inconsistent games where they look good one night, they look terrible. They gave up a 19-point lead to LeBron James in a 4th quarter. All these games, it just makes me doubt them a little bit. I know their top-end talent probably will prove me wrong and at least get to the 2nd round, because I think they will handle the Mavs in the 1st round, because their wing defense is just too good and will shut down. Well, you ain't ever able to actually shut down, but should slow down Luka a little bit, because they have so many players they can throw at him, like Kawhi, Paul George. Even Terrence Mann isn't the worst defensive player, but you already have 2 star defensive players there that you can throw at him. And so I think that the Clippers should win that matchup, but give us a little bit of, prove us right that you are that team. Then we have to talk about the Mavs. They're the hottest team, 9-1 in their last 10. No other team has been 9-1 in their last 10. But why is that? Because of Luka Doncic. This guy is insane. I can't believe it. He's pushing for that MVP. He is pushing for that MVP. We'll get to the MVP conversation just in a minute. But he wasn't in the lineup today. But the Mavs beat the Warriors without him, which shows that Kyrie is a really good player. But then you go back to this Rockets game, where it was 125-107, and he put up 47 points, 7 assists and 12 rebounds. He's coming home hard for that MVP award, and he is carrying the Mavs to this 5th seed. All they have to do now to lock it in, win your games against the easy teams, the Rockets, the Hornets, the Pistons, and the Heat. And I know the Heat isn't technically an easy team, but it should be an easy team for the Mavs, because I think the Mavs are better. And you secured your seeding. You secured that 5th seed. So I think the Mavs are really good, and you have to watch out for Luka in this MVP race, which I'm going to get into now. I think it's only 2 players, and I've had enough of the narratives. Giannis has had a great year, but with the narratives, it's going to take him out of the MVP. It is. It's just going to happen. Even though he's averaging 31 points on great efficiency, people don't care. They don't. It's hard to get it, especially when your coach got fired mid-season. And I know it wasn't Giannis' fault, but it kind of was his fault. But yeah, it's unfair on him. He's had a great year. He's averaging 31, 11 boards, and 7 assists on 61% from the field. Just insane. And I know it's unfair, but he's not going to win it. So it's going to come down to Jokic and Luka. And the problem with Luka's case is Luka is a 5th seed. Jokic could be the one, probably the 2 or the 3. And what's the difference there? Jokic won it in that year in, I think, 2021. Westbrook won it back, I think it was 2016. I don't know, one of those years and all these players win it as a lower seed, but it's not that year. Jokic was the best player that year. He was the most valuable player that year. Westbrook was averaging a triple-double. And I know Luka's averaging 34 at 8 and 9, but Jokic has been incredible. It's not like his stats aren't impressive. If you're saying that 26, 12 and 9 isn't impressive, then you're kidding yourself. On very good efficiency too, 58% and 34% from 3. Whereas Luka, he's averaging incredible stats, but not on the same efficiency on 48 and 38. And I know it changes for main ball handlers, and of course it's going to change, but it still shouldn't change the fact that Jokic is still having an incredible season and leading his team to a better seeding. So I feel that Jokic should win it this year, and it is a great season for Luka, but it doesn't change the fact that Jokic has been great. But Embiid, earlier on in the year, I feel bad for him. He was having the best season in the past 10 years. If he pulled that off and averaged 36 points, and what was he averaging? He was averaging 36 and I think 12. Let's check. 30. It's gone down a little bit, but now it's down to 35, 11 and 6. You'd expect that was about 36, 12 and 7 when he was active, which is incredible. You feel bad for him, but I have a video right here how that impacts the 76ers.